To Forward Live. And I've decided that in this season of my podcast, which this is season 2 under the One Institution banner, that I'm going to do my podcast live. And I'm talking about practical things, things that can actually help people improve their lives. Because listen, if I say this all the time, that if it ain't useful, it ain't useful. If it ain't helpful, it ain't helpful. And what we have to do is we have to get to this point where we're starting to think about things in a practical sense and in usability and user experience, right? So that's what my goal is for 2022. So I want to talk today about freedom. Freedom. First thing I want to say about freedom is if you're hooked on phonics, that freedom means free to be dumb. Which that means that not that freedom in and of itself is not going to foster intelligence. It's not going to foster correct thinking. It just means that you have the freedom to think. And so freedom is basically the state of not being in bondage, not being under control of a person or an entity. And what I've learned is that most people don't know what it means to be free. Now, here's an interesting thing is that if you have been a slave and can acknowledge that you've been a slave, then you know what freedom really is. But there are many people today that they are slaves and have no fucking clue that they're slaves. The late great emancipator Harriet Tubman was asked once, how many slaves did she liberate? And she said, thousands, but I would have liberated thousands more had they known they were slaves. You see, many people have no clue that they're slaves, especially here in the good old United States of America. Because when people think of slavery, they think of the enslavement of Africans, because that's their mental paradigm. But what I've learned is that the powers that be in this country have learned to effectively use the same tactics that they used on Negroes for 400 years on everyone else. First of all, you are not free if you are not free to leave. What do I mean by that? That the majority of Americans do not move farther than 25 miles from their place of birth. They don't venture out. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. And so as a result, they are in bondage to the worldview of the area they grew up in. Man, that's powerful. Now, I'll say this, that I was born in Illinois. I grew up in Detroit, but I've lived in 8 different states. Lived. I mean, where I actually had a mailing address, 8 different states. I've been to all 50 states. And I've been to over 100 countries in the world. So my worldview is pretty broad. It's pretty diverse. I've seen some things. And what that has given me is a view that's broader than Decatur, Illinois, or Detroit, Michigan. My worldview is not limited by or hindered by or hampered by where I grew up. Now, that's one thing. Another thing is that people are in bondage to money. Now, let me say this for the record that I too am a wage slave. Now, I'm well paid for what I do and I live a good life. However, if I stop working, the money stops coming in and the wheels fall off. So even though I'm well paid, I'm not wealthy because everything that I do is contingent upon me getting up and going to work every day. So what happens is a lot of us are enslaved by money. And here's the interesting thing is that I have had a stellar career. I'm considered to be a thought leader in my area of expertise, in my profession. But this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. But until I can get to where what I want to do pays the bills like what I have to do, then I have to keep doing what I have to do. So I am a slave to money. And many of you also are. So let me tell you how you escape from that, right? Because I'm working on this. I'm not just idly sitting by and accepting my lot in life. No, I'm working conscientiously to change it. So I'm working on developing multiple streams of income and multiple paths of investment and all of that so that I can get to the point where I no longer have to do what I have to do and I can focus on doing what I want to do. Because until you can do what you want to do, I had a friend, like people talk about the work ethic of the rich and all of that. And I have a friend who's fabulously wealthy. And one day he told me, he said, "Yeah, he said people tell you that, that the top 1% that they work really hard and all of that." And he said, "No," he said, "I go to bed when I'm tired of being awake, and I wake up when I'm tired of sleeping." Because that's what you can do when your money works for you instead of you working for your money. Let me say that again. That the key to financial freedom is when you have money that works for you instead of you working for your money. And I told my sons this, I've raised them on this principle that you have to cultivate what I call fuck you money. Because when you have fuck you money, you can tell people to go fuck themselves. You don't have to take shit off anybody. Excuse me. And I've said this before that life is like a shit sandwich. That the more bread you get, the less shit you got to eat. And that's real talk, y'all. That's real talk. So many of us are enslaved to money. The next thing that we're enslaved to is ideology. Listen, you don't want to get to the point where you are enslaved by what you believe to be true. And I'm going to bifurcate this and split this into two categories, into ideology and into religion, because ideology, this is a thing in this country right now because people are so galvanized by conservative ideology that they cannot see something that is absolutely toxic. Listen, people voted for Donald Trump in 2016 because they said he's pro-life, he's going to appoint pro-life judges, he's going to support family values, he's going to support freedom of religion and all of these other things, right? Meanwhile, this is a man that literally said, grab women by the pussy. He literally said that. This is not something that somebody made up. Somebody got the receipts. And, this is a man that's been divorced multiple times, that he's had multiple affairs, that he's done some very salacious things. But people are so caught up in ideology that this pro-life thing is so important to them that they're willing to sacrifice everything else on the altar of that. And let me tell you this, first of all, for those of you who believe that pro-life is a biblical principle, it is not. There is not a single verse in your Bible that talks about the prohibition of abortion, but there is at least 8 verses that actually condone and endorse it as if it is coming from God himself. That's real talk. But you're enslaved to this ideology because you think that that you're going to get something out of it. Now watch this too. Now I'm going to say this, and this is going to make a lot of people mad. But another reason why people are on the Trump train is because he says out loud what they've been thinking silently. In other words, he's given people a license to say and do racist shit. But the thing is that when you get galvanized in your thinking, listen, I think it was Voltaire that said that people who believe in obscenities will have you do absurdity, or people that have you believe in absurdities will have you do obscenities. So that's where we are. That is where we are. And listen, unless you can look at 2 ideas and hold them both in some regard and be able to look at one and look at the other, juxtapose the 2 and make some value judgments about them. If you can't hold multiple thoughts like that, then you are enslaved to ideology. Listen, I tell people all the time that, I was a Christian almost all my life. I was in ministry for 30 years of my life, and I was in pastoral ministry for 20 years of my life. And yet today I am an atheist. Let me say that for the record, because there's a lot of people say, man, well, Derrick has really gone off the rails. No, I haven't gone off the rails, y'all. I've woke up because I understand that this is all bullshit, right? And I'm going to get to religion in a minute. But the point is that I couldn't have gotten to where I am without being able to consider an extra thought, a different thought. And if you can't do that, you are in bondage to ideology. And likewise with religion, is that most people are the religion that they are because that's the way mama, daddy, grandpa, grandma raised you to be. It is because that is what was the prevailing religious thought in your geography, wherever it is that you grew up. This is why you are the way you are, not because you really thought about it. Now, see, here's the problem is that when you've been conditioned into something, now you're galvanized in that thought. You're hardened in that thought. And what you will do now is, first of all, cognitive dissonance has kicked in your head so that you anything that is outside your worldview, you are unwilling to consider. And then on top of that, that everything that you do as far as learning, as far as research or anything like that, is done with what's called confirmation bias. So in other words, now you are only going to find or look for that which justifies your worldview. And that's where we are. So people are in bondage to their ideology, in bondage to money. And let me tell you this, right? A lot of us are in bondage to health. We're in bondage to health because we don't take care of ourselves. We don't exercise. We don't, people don't get outside like they used to. And then with this pandemic and everything, a lot of people that went to the gym and all of that, you can't do that. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I say, it's not safe to do that kind of shit right now. It's just not. But you're enslaved to bad eating habits, bad exercise habits, bad sleeping habits, and then you get sick, and you wonder, man, how did I get here? Why or how is it that I have heart disease? Why or how is it that I have high blood pressure? Why or how is it that that I'm diabetic? Well, a lot of that is because it's a self-inflicted wound. And let me say this, like, oh man, I'm gonna come back to that one. But anyway, the deal is that if you're unwilling to change how you eat, how you exercise, how you're spending your time in terms of maintenance on your body, then and you get sick, and then, man, we're and this is so crazy. My mind is absolutely blown by this because health concerns in this country are huge. Most people don't exercise. Most people don't eat right. Most people don't see their doctor on a regular basis. I'm talking about the majority of Americans. But when you start talking about, hey, let's have universal health care so that everybody can go to the doctor, they can get checked out, they can get treated without fearing the threat of bankruptcy. In other words, something that would actually give you some freedom, you actually fight against it. And this is mind blowing to me. You fight against something that is actually going to help you. God, this country is fucking nuts. Oh man. But anyway, we don't know that we're in bondage. And it's like we'll go out and we'll work and we'll work and when they start talking about raising taxes on the wealthy to help people who are disadvantaged, do you understand that raising taxes, that every tax hike that's been proffered, that it will not affect most Americans? Are you guys aware of that? So if Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey or Michael Jordan, any of these people, they have to pay more taxes, they can afford to pay the taxes because they already have billions. They have financial freedom and, drum roll please, they have fuck you money. So they can look at you in the working class and say, fuck you. So what does it mean to be free? What it means to be free is when you are free to entertain a thought that's different than yours, when you are free to come and go as you please, when you are free to be secure in your person. And let's talk about that too. Stop here. Sexual freedom. Now, the Bible tells us that biblical marriage is one man and one woman. Well, you know what? You found that in Genesis, but after that, you don't really find it. Biblical marriage is usually one man and several women. But you ladies, y'all Christian women, y'all support this Bible, but y'all don't really, you really don't. And then, we talk about, there's been a lot of harm done to the LGBTQ plus community. And I have to admit that as a Christian pastor, I was a part of that bullshit. And for all of my brothers in the LGBTQ, brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community, excuse me, I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize for everything. I'm totally contrite. And I'll tell you this, that I'm a firm believer in sexual freedom, that basically you should be free to decide whether or not this is what you want to do. And if this is how you are born, that you should be free to express yourself sexually in the way that you were genetically wired. But if if you choose to experiment, then you should be free to do that. And as far as like polygamy, polyamory, listen, if that's what floats your boat, and all the adult parties in concerned are consenting, then have at it. Listen, we get so yoked to ideas and ideals, and we say that this is just the way things ought to be. And honestly, what we have to learn is that the only thing that's consistent is change. That basically we live in a society now where we have tons of information, tons of data, and the ability to harness this data and to aggregate and share this data. And if there's something that you want to try or experiment with, as long as all parties are consenting, then have at it. But if you're in a monogamous relationship and that was the path that you took going into it, then honor that. If all parties went into this monogamous relationship with the understanding that this is a monogamous relationship, then by all means honor that. But if that's not what, if you have consent, then by all means feel yourself out. But again, what I want to say is that freedom is the ability to come and go as you please, to not be yoked to an ideology, to not be yoked to a spiritual paradigm, to not be locked into what you think sexuality should be. And let me talk about this too, because let's talk about drugs for a minute, because there are a lot of people that are for the legalization of drugs, and there are a lot of people that are opposed to the legalization of drugs. I personally, and Aaron Tomlinson and I talked about this Friday night about opinions, right? So this is my opinion, but I believe that it's a qualified opinion, because, well, I actually am someone who actually does the work, does the research, and I'm sorry. You have to go back and listen to Aaron and I's show for Friday night to kind of get the joke. But I'll say this: that basically, if you want to drink, drink. If you want to smoke, smoke. If you want to snort, snort. You want to toot, toot. You want to shoot up, shoot up. I mean, that's your thing. Now, the thing that you have to keep in mind is that, are you doing something to harm anyone else? So let me say this: like, if you are a parent and you're raising children, right, then you have a moral obligation. Yes, moral obligation uh, to look after your children, which means that you should not do opiates to the point where you are not functional, because you have to actually take care of these children, because they are your responsibility. They didn't ask to come here, so that means you're the one that has to take care of them. Okay. Second thing is, you don't want to consume any intoxicating substance and go out and drive an automobile or operate any machinery. Why? Because you could actually harm someone. And again, it's the difference between hurting someone and harming someone. I could say something. I could say, you're a motherfucker, and that might hurt you. But if I said, your motherfucking ass should be dead, then I've done something to harm you. You see the difference there? It's a big difference. So if I get in a car intoxicated, then I'm running the risk of causing harm to someone, and then I should not do it. So these are the things that comprise freedom. These are the things that basically, if you want to be free, you need to learn how to be financially free. You need to learn how to be ideologically free. You need to learn how to be sexually free. Learn how to be free in your health, in your personal being. Free in your body. That basically nobody can come into your house and tell you what to do, or come onto your social media timeline and tell you what you should or shouldn't post. Yeah, I said that too. So, with that being said, that pretty much wraps up the podcast. And at this point, I'm going to take the link from the show and I'm going to paste this in the chat. And if you click on this link, you will actually join in. I can actually add you in and we could talk. You could share your opinion, what your thoughts are, and all of that stuff. And I'd love to hear from you. Now, I'm not going to put your content on the podcast, right? I just want you to know that this is basically for the live stream and for the live stream only. So if you want to, click the link. This says HTTPS Studio Restream IO/guest, blah, 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 blah. And then you can join in on the action. But I'll be honest, is that when you look at this society today, you look at the world, and you will come to the conclusion that that most people wouldn't know freedom if it bit them in the ass. They just wouldn't. Most people, they think that they're free. It's funny how basically how slave masters did slaves back in the day of African enslavement, and they would separate the slaves by skin tone, by hair texture, by height or by weight, and then they would give some slaves privileges based on some attribute, and while others were forced to be really mistreated. And y'all, listen, that is how they're doing Americans at large. Americans at large are separated by skin tone, by ethnicity, by belief, by economic strata, by geography, and so on and so forth. And so what happened during slavery, and then this is what what you have to realize, is that the whole concept of slavery was perfected on black folks, and now it's been rolled out to white folks and a whole bunch of other folks. And honestly, we're all slaves. We're enslaved to something or the other. But here's the deal: you have the ability to get free, to actually be free. And I'll tell you something. People say in the Bible, they say, well, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Black folks were enslaved for over 400 years, and Jesus didn't do a goddamn thing for them. He didn't. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, and Jesus didn't do a goddamn thing for them. Nothing. So when you talk about giving it over to Jesus, and in Jesus you have complete freedom, that's bullshit. Basically, and I'm going to say this, and this is going to make a whole bunch of people mad, is that Jesus is nothing but candy coated religion. People say, oh, Jesus isn't religion, he's relationship. That's bullshit, y'all. Jesus is just candy coated religion. And as soon as you get to that, once you can really process that thought, now you're on the path to freedom. But when you think that, well, in Christ I have complete freedom, that's like saying that in a jail cell I have complete freedom. Do you see how that sounds? Yeah, that's right. Ben, grace is a guilt trip. I'm telling you, Ben, man, me and you, we got to get on and do a live stream. We have to do that. We have to do that soon, my friend, soon. But I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes and see if anybody wants to join in and listen. You can come on and you can agree with me, disagree with me, but one thing is that if you cuss or insult me, I got a switch here and I'll just cut you off because I don't have to take any shit off anybody. I tell people all the time, listen, if you have a problem with me, give me a call. But if you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. And, uh, you know, number two is that I've said this, you can't fuck with my money and you can't kick my ass. No, I'm not saying that I'm going to beat everybody that I have a fight with. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I don't care who you are, you're going to take one in the process. You're not just going I mean, the only way that you're just going to completely uh, avoid any retaliation from me in a physical sense is if you completely sucker punch me. So yeah, I'm going to go back to the comments here because there's some good stuff here. Ben, you said traditionalism is bullshit, and I agree with you on that. And you said also we're responsible for our own actions and what comes about because of them. There is no devil except for the one in the mirror. You goddamn right about that. And okay, you say, I'm an atheist to the degree I don't believe in any concept of divinity that can be compartmentalized or monopolized by any ideological structures. I remain open to the possibility that there is some great overarching energy out there which does not need to be fully understood, nor can it ever be. And I'll say this about that I believe that energy is conscious. And that energy will automatically aggregate itself into its greatest and highest use. The problem is that once some energy has been aggregated into sentient beings, that they learn how to abuse that energy. So I'll go that far. But as far as like even a sentient being, I don't even believe that. Because if that God exists, that God is a complete dick. Ben said the theological taskmaster is treacherous as fuck. That's very true. Lynn Stephen Kissinger said that Trump was not very conservative to begin with. You got that right. And let's see, Lynn also said, debt slave per your choice. We have a choice. You can spend 70 grand on cash and I'll spend 10 grand in cash and be free, or 70 grand on a car and I'll spend 10 grand in cash and be free. That's true. That's true. And Ben says, unfortunately, income is a necessary master. It is until you figure out how to get to the point where you are free. And again, not everybody's going to be a billionaire. Let me make that clear. But if you have money coming in, whether you work or not, you are free. You're experiencing freedom. So that looks like it. Nobody's joining in. It's funny because I really thought that through this Restream platform that we'd get more people, more participants in on the call. But hey, you do you. There's no condemnation. I mean, it's like if you want to join in, you join in, and if you don't, hey, Simon is here. And listen, in about 20 minutes, Simon and I will be live, and we're gonna talk. My man Marshall Stukes is on here, but yeah, Simon and I we're gonna be on, and we're gonna talk about some of these religious nitwits that that like to throw stones at people when they don't agree with them. I'm going to say this, that basically when I made the decision, the conscientious decision to not be the comfortable Negro anymore, I lost a lot of friends. Ben said he's trying to log in, but his computer might be too out of date or something. If you have an iPhone, it'll work on that, or a newer Android phone, Ben. It'll work on that. and that's pretty much all I can tell you. I know that it works because we had Gwendolyn on Friday, or the last two Fridays, as a matter of fact, that she joined in and shared her comments. So it's out there, it's available, and then I'm going to use the same platform. But with a different link with Simon in about 20 minutes that we'll be going live. My man Sheldon Williams, I haven't seen him in a while, but he says Trump did the same thing to America that evangelical pastors do to their congregations. You know that's absolutely true. Actually, it's worse than that. Um, it's like the difference between consensual and non-consensual sex. Um, because basically, evangelical pastor is only doing it to people who want to have it done to them. But when you're the president of the United States, you get to fuck everybody, and that's. And my man Marshall Stooks said he's still doing it. Yes, he is. He still is. So his fucker was in Texas doing a rally. Yeah. So anyway, guys, that pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I've done the podcast. That'll be posted up on iTunes and Podbean and every place fine podcasts are found. But like I said, tune in about 20 minutes where my man Simon Yap and I will be on, and we'll be sharing our thoughts about again, social media dingbats. Because here's the thing, people want to talk shit, talk a good game, and all of that. But honestly, your opinion of me doesn't mean a goddamn thing to me. Now, there are people out here that I have that are my friends. I mean, when I talk about real friends, I talk about people like Marshall Stooks, who's in the comments there. Marshall and I have been friends for over 30 years. His opinion absolutely does mean something to me. Excuse me. So, you have to learn how to rightly divide the opinions that actually mean something and the opinions that don't mean shit, and move on from there. But if there's nothing else, may you be happy, may you be well, may you be filled with peace, and have a fantastic week. I'm out.